Hello, Anders. How are you doing?
Good. Thanks.
Hey, welcome. You're Anders from KnowledgeCotton Apparel. You're the COO, the Chief Operational Officer, and you're here today to tell us a little bit more on KnowledgeCotton Apparel's stance on cotton and, what cotton means to you and how you go about it. And you have been with KnowledgeCotton for 10 years almost. And I would love to hear a little bit about your journey and what KnowledgeCotton does, what you want to achieve in the world.
Yeah. I will try to brief you the short version of that. I have been in this industry for quite some years now, also with bigger companies. Quite fast, I was not pleased with the way that, many brands did business back then. And then I heard about a company called KnowledgeCotton Apparel, or was actually approached by this company, and was really stoked with the way that they approach things. And now I've been here for 10 years. And basically, the company was founded in 2008 on those principles that they want to challenge the industry. They want to do what they think would be the best. And as long as there's a need for clothes in this industry, then we want to challenge and provide the best solution, according to us, at least. And this has more or less been the DNA since day one. And we are a mid-sized company, so we are quite agile in terms of switching directions if we want to do that or if we think there's a better alternative, which is also why I've been in this company for quite some years now. So we started out as a very casual menswear brand and have developed throughout the years. Now we both have female and male line, and we provide everything from top to bottom, from socks to functional outerwear jackets. And we have a highly focus on challenging natural fibers in terms of seeing how far we can take this, especially within outerwear where it can be a challenge. But we want to prefer natural fibers in the future. And I think today we are at 98% or something like that.
Oh, wow.
Within natural fibers.
When do you choose non-natural fibers? Like, what's the reason you go for them, even though you really want to not use them?
Yeah. I mean, we don't want to compromise on the product. So there's, some categories where you just can't avoid having some kind of synthetic fibers in, for instance, socks. I mean, we could easily make a sock in 100% cotton, but, after 2 weeks, they will be broken. So that would be a compromise to the product. So here we need to add recycled elastin for us to be able to have a stable product. So unless there is some developments and innovation that can fulfill that wish, we are reluctant to use that, which are hopefully getting there. I think there's many exciting projects going on right now, and we have also something in the pipeline. So if we want to reach our goal, we're also very much depending on how the industry reacts and how they involved in terms of innovation. It can be very technical. So right now we're working on different projects where you can convert bacteria into natural cellulose fibers and then replace them through time by elastin, making it a natural product.
I mean, you are doing amazing. And let's be honest, a product that, is worn out after 2 weeks is not durable and thus not sustainable. So there's compromises you need to make now and then. I really like KnowledgeCotton because it is indeed focused on men, and almost no brand is. Generally, fashion brands focus on women. In sustainable fashion, I think that's even more heavy. There's way less options for men. And I've always gravitated towards KnowledgeCotton Apparel because you are really a men's brand. And I really love that. Is that what sets you apart as well? Or do you also have different unique selling points that make you different?
I would say that the way that I think we do business is that we want to provide an end consumer with the right minds and thoughts and choices before they make a purchase. So we want to be as transparent as possible. So for us, it's very important that it's not us promoting, saying that we are the most sustainable company. This needs to be verified throughout different parties, which is not necessarily us, which is why, 100% of our collections is third-party certified. So it's not something that we claim. There is a company behind it, which has no stock in KnowledgeCotton, but they do what they do, and then you get a stamp if you are approved or not approved. And then we try to add on, what we think is relevant and what we have the resources to do. And this could, for instance, be through QR codes. So we have a small QR code on all our garments next to the care label or the wash care, where you can scan it, and then you can see the entire journey from cotton fields to our warehouse, which is quite cool.
You know where the cotton fields are specifically?
Normally, when we start a new product, this is where we start. So, of course, we do fashion styles, but we are actually a very farming, nerdy kind of company. We like to dig down in these, small things, which is actually not that small, but it's very important to focus on where the fiber is grown, which is the cotton fields.
I would say that's a big distinction with a lot of brands, because I'm a little bit of a nerd too. I would really love to learn more about how you go about that. Like, do you visit certain farmlands and do you envision a product from there? How does the process work?
I mean, normally this is where it becomes a challenge for us, is that we have some standards that we need to follow. Otherwise, we'll not start the project. And for instance, we have a cotton project in India, a regenerative project, which has been going on for 5 years, where we started the conversation with the farmers and one of our good partners down there on how we could actually convert those organic cotton fields into regenerative organic cotton fields. And that journey from when we decided until today also kind of defines what products you can make, because the outcome is also what you need to use to make products. Then we could have a vision of saying that we want to do these products, but we can only do this because this is our standard in terms of raw material that we can actually use. So this is often when we get backlog. This is when we want to do something which is simply not possible, because then we would compromise on the raw fiber. And this is where we need to start always. This is with the raw fiber. What is the impact there? And then you can build the layers afterwards.
That's very inspiring. Never heard of a brand actually going in this particular order of approaching creating a new collection. And could you explain more about regenerative cotton?
I mean, for us, it has always been important because we are big also through our name in terms of using cotton. So this is where our main focus has been always. And we want to challenge that and see what we can actually do better. And then we came across this regenerative thinking, which was mainly used in food industry. We want to convert that into to cotton fields as well. So basically what it is that you do farming you did 100 years back. I mean, the way that you grew cotton 100 or 200 years back.
Okay.
So
before all the GMO, genetically modified, before all the pesticides, insecticides, etc.
All of that, which is really the beauty about it. And it's very old school. So, you don't have machines that do the harvest. You just have real manpower and back to the roots. And then, of course, there's some different requirements in terms of how you do the harvest and what you're allowed to plant and what you're not allowed to plant. But the main purpose is to also secure the farmers, which were very close to our heart. So they were not reluctant on only how the cotton harvest would be that year, but they would also have some different income in terms of growing food crops or vegetables or, something else that they could also have an earning on if the cotton field or if there was a lot of rain that year. So the outcome was bad, whatever it could be.
So basically help the farmers to diversify their business model as well.
Yeah, this is the thing, because, many of the farmers, they're just getting pushed and pushed and pushed. And then you do different kind of structures to have a higher outcome of the cotton or whatever it is. But it's always on the behalf of the farmers, which is really where we need to start, because this is the main source for us to be able to make clothes. So this was very close to our heart. And I would say that, I think it was 1.5 years back when I was in India talking to one of these farmers, and he just became so emotional about it that he started to cry, because he said, I have never seen, animal life in my farms like this. I have never seen this and this and this. And he could just feel that, this is how we grew cotton back in the days. This is how we grew food crops back in the days. This is how it's supposed to be. And just by, standing, with a full-grown man with tears in his eyes, saying that, now it makes sense again. That feeling, okay, then it becomes real, because this is where you need to put your focus. And then you can do some clothes afterwards. But it just makes sense. Really, it does.
Yeah, of course. And the regenerative part of it, is that something that heals the soil as well? Is that, keeps the soil fertile and it makes sure the micronutrients are still in there?
Yeah, it is, exactly. And basically what you do is that when you crop the seeds, then you have this layering of waste, which, keeps the ground fertilized. And then you have the whole carbon thing, which is not going up into the air. It's actually attracted down to the soil. And you just have so many benefits of it. So in terms of sustainable grown cotton, of course, this is the right way to do it. That's quite obvious. And you can see all the figures behind it. But I would say for us, it has been more the human aspect to it as well. Of course, you have the impact. But the impact in the cotton field compared to an organic cotton field is, of course, lower, but it's not that much.
So you get less the yield. So the amount of cotton that you produce would be lower. It would be 80% of organic.
Because you are not allowed to use the entire field for cotton, for instance. You have to grow different kind of sorts as well to secure the income for the farmers. So you'll get a lower outcome of cotton.
Yes, but that would be compensated with the income from the other crops.
Exactly, yeah. Yeah, from the farmers level, they will have an increase of income per square meter.
This is very interesting, because in the sustainable world, organic cotton is like the holy grail of cotton. But what I'm hearing is that's not the case. We should be migrating towards something else, because that not only is better for the planet, apparently nature comes back. Animals are actually there on the farm, but it's also more stable crop because the soil is more resilient, basically. And the farmer has a more stable way of living because they have multiple sources of income from different crops. So why is the world still on organic cotton then, if this is the holy grail maybe?
If you present the alternatives, then I think it's pretty clear what you need to choose. If you're able to capture carbon into the soil, nobody can argue that that's a bad thing. And if you can make a better livelihood for a farmer, I also think it's very hard to argue on that. But then it becomes commercial. And then you need to make it into a product, and then you need to sell it to an end consumer, and then you need to compete with different brands. And this is where it becomes an issue. So this is where brands, they need to decide which way they go. If they compromise on whatever it is. I mean, we have chosen not to. Some brands have chosen to compromise on aspects like this because they need to offer a cheap alternative. And this is where it becomes a, big frustration that, under 1% of the cotton grown globally is organic, and even lower percent of that 1% regenerative. So it's just such a small percentage. And we have to grow that. And the thing is that the different farmers that we work with, they are also very much aware of what could happen if they would go into business with bigger brands. They are also afraid because if they become, too depending on those guys, then it could have a negative effect as well. And then the whole concept of that will fall apart. So they also, they're very selected on brands and partnership that they go into, which is understandable.
And how would you say that, like, transitioning from regular cotton to regenerative, or from organic to regenerative cotton, how long is that process? And is that a expensive process for the farmers?
Going from an organic farm to a regenerative farm takes around 2.5, 3 years. And that is a process. I would say that, we need to go a step back because we need to focus on the non-organic farms, because this is the biggest percentage, 99% exactly. If you want to convert that into an organic field, this is also around 3 years, I think. But in that period of time, you can grow something called cotton in conversion. It's not conventional cotton and it's not organic cotton, it's in conversion. So for a farmer to convert, this can be a very expensive process.
And do you always have to move to organic first before you can go to regenerative? Is it like a necessary step, or can you jump over it?
No, you cannot jump over it. So if you need to convert, from conventional to regenerative, it's 5-6 years, something like this.
That's a long time.
It's a long time, but I mean, what brands need to do to help the farmers in cases like this is that they need to, the way that we did it, which I honestly think is the right way to do it, is that, the farmers, they want to be secure about what the outcome of the cotton is end of the year. And if they need to make some change, they need to have some kind of security within that. So what we did was that even though we didn't know the outcome of the cotton, we would prepay the outcome of 2 tons of cotton. And then they could kind of start their work, and maybe the outcome would be, 1.5 tons of cotton because of heavily weighing or whatever it could be. But then we would still have paid for 2 tons. But that would also help the farmer to invest and to do the necessary change for this to be possible and to speed up the process. So it needs to be an investment from the brand's perspective, because the farmers, first of all, they cannot afford it, and second of all, they need the brands behind to support it. So this is the most difficult thing, because it starts with the brands, because this is where the money needs to come from.
Yeah, it makes sense. And now you are called KnowledgeCotton Apparel, so you have knowledge on cotton a lot. Is that something you spread to other brands, that you help them take on this approach?
Absolutely, it is. When we launched that QR code on all our products to make our entire supply chain visible for all competitors, this was also a topic, if this was something that we would like to do or something that we would not like to do. But the conclusion was that, if other brands could tap onto our supply chain, which we think is quite good, that would just be a better choice at the end. So we actually took that decision to be 100% transparent and open about our supply chain. And then all other brands could just, tap in and contact them directly if they want to do business with them. So I think it's very important sharing knowledge across brands, because then you just have, much more power. And then hopefully, that 1% can be 5% and 10%. And so on.
That's the whole point, right? There's a lot of brands that try to do better. I mean, not nearly enough, but there's a lot still. We work with around 150 of them. And at least the brands who we work with, they have their hearts in the right place. They really try to do better. And that's really amazing. And what you see generally, of course, this is a natural instinct. If you are building your own brand, then you want to keep your secrets to yourself, because that's what sets you apart, right? But the thing is, there's this divide and conquer strategy in war. We could take that analogy and say that fast fashion is dividing all the brands and making sure that we're not working together and like focusing on our own success, basically capitalism, very individualistic, in the hope that we alone can change the world, when in reality, it doesn't work like that. We have to work together, because together we can actually change things, right? Then multiple brands together can put a down payment on certain cotton production and create security for the farmers, which means more farmers can convert more more organic or even regular cotton fields, which means they can invest more, which means the yield will go up, which means the percentage of organic or regenerative would go up. And we would actually start creating a movement now, increasing the percentage of less toxic materials in the world. And I think that's very, very inspiring that you are actually sharing this knowledge. It's amazing.
I mean, if you're honest about the things that you do and your business is built on that, then there's no reason not to share it. But I mean, if you have a different agenda, this is where brands have a tendency to start hide things. And then this is just a shame because we have so much potential. I mean, if we just join forces, we could just convert this industry tremendously fast.
Yes, I totally agree. So with doing things the way they should be, of course, challenges come with that. So what's the big challenge you're facing right now when it comes to building a sustainable brand using cotton?
I would say that it has actually been a fun journey to see how that has developed across the years, because, we as an industry are also affected by how the world is. If there is, a conflict in some countries or a new president in other countries, it has an effect on the buying behavior. And you could have a very high focus on sustainable products as an end consumer 1 year, and then the year after, you're just saving wherever you can save, and then sustainable products are not that important anymore. So that tendency is just very unstable. Our biggest challenge is that we are trying to, in many ways, compete with similar brands that are doing similar styles as us, but not in the way that we are doing it. But I mean, if an end consumer has a tight economy and they need to pay either 50 euros for a shirt or 80 euros for a shirt, we know what they're going to choose unless they have a very high standard within sustainability. So I'd say this is our biggest challenge, that we need to compete with conventional brands when the market is not in a stable place.
And would you then go about it by trying to reduce the price, so you have price parity, or would you go about educating the people that the price should be higher because if the price is lower, it's other people or nature or animals that are paying the price?
I think we're doing a little bit of both, to be honest. We are taking the margins as low as we can get them because we will not step into that fight where we push down in our supply chains, because we know exactly what a fair living wage is in our supply chain. So that would not be ethical, and that will just spoil the whole system behind the brand if we get away. But of course, in some cases, we need to lower our internal margin to get the products out there. But it is very much about educating. I think the biggest job ahead of us is to educate, because if you have explained to an end consumer that, look at this shirt, scan this QR code, now you can see the 15 steps behind that shirt. We need to make sure as a brand, all of those steps, they are managed in a humane, right way. And, all people are paid according to this and that. And we also need to certify our goods, and we need to have transaction certificates from raw fiber to end product, and so on and so on. If you explain that to an end consumer, I have done that a few times, suddenly the conversation goes to being maybe an expensive shirt to this is actually quite cheap if you need to control all of those steps. So I think this is where we can have the biggest impact, actually, to educate people. And this is what we're trying to do, through these QR codes. And the next one will be also a QR code on the products where you can scan and see the emission part of that specific product you bought. So you can see, what the footprint has been. So we want to be as transparent as possible. So, the customer can evaluate and say that, this is actually a good choice, or this is actually not a good choice.
Amazing story. Now, we don't have a QR code scanner with us, but we do have 2 of your products here. And we asked you to choose 3 of your favorite products, and this is one. Can you tell us why this is one of your favorite products?
It's always funny, how I would describe that compared to a sales guy. But I would say that that we took a decision some years back that we want to challenge the soft outdoor industry, because it's very much controlled by synthetic fibers and not very sustainable fibers. So we want to challenge that to see what we could actually do. So we spent actually close to 2 years just to develop that specific fabric, which is a very fine organic Supima cotton and very tight woven fabric. It's not waterproof, but it's water resistant just because of the fiber and just because of the weaving of the fiber. So, when cotton becomes wet, it kind of expands a little bit. And if you have that combined with a tight weaving, then you have some kind of functionality to it. And then we added we tape seams to make it a functional jacket. So I have been using this jacket for quite a while. And it's just perfect when you go into the forest and it rains for 4 hours, and then you can go back and you're not total soaked. Of course, you will never climb a mountain in that jacket. This is not the purpose, but
No.
it's important to develop something that can live in a casual life as well. And
Yeah.
even though it's just a blue jacket, which hopefully looks cool, just
It looks really cool.
The innovation behind it. It took close to 2 years just to get that fabric right.
That's
Afterwards,
also
when you-
investing a lot of time and money again.
It is.
And just hoping that you get there and eventually earn some money back on all that, research. Hopefully that will come. Yeah, for sure. And well, I'm a big fan.
That's good to
That's
hear.
for sure. So I think we're looking at a shirt now that you are actually wearing yourself at this particular point in time.
Yeah, perfect timing, right?
Yeah, good timing. It's like almost a coincidence. So tell me
Yeah.
more. Why this t-shirt? It looks great.
I mean, from going from one project to another project where this is quite simple, where the other one was a bit more complex. I mean, this is just a very basic article. But, if you dig down to the story behind it, this is where it becomes interesting. This is what we refer to as a nose product, meaning that this is something that we always have on stock. So consumers and stores can buy this from us all the time. We always have it on stock, meaning that we have a high volume on it. So for us, it was very important to see how could we have the most positive impact as a company. And that would, of course, be to focus on the styles where we have the highest volume. So this was one of the first t-shirts we actually converted into regenerative organic cotton because
The
it
OG.
makes sense. Yes. So this is actually the reason why I brought this. Because it just have a huge impact on what we do because of the quantity behind it. So even though it's just a basic t-shirt, it really means a lot for farmers and supply chain behind it. So for us, it's not just a basic t-shirt. It is lifting the business.
Amazing. And last but not least, this amazing jacket, which looks really comfortable.
Yeah.
Does this use the same material as the blue jacket?
The blue jacket was in 170 GSM, meaning the weight of the fabric, where this is a 90 GSM. So it's a much, much lighter fabric. And then I don't know if you have a close-up, but it's this ripstrap structure, which they used
you see the
back
ribs
in the days.
Indeed. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So this was used, for parachutes back in the days in military because it's very durable. And this is also made in 100% Supima cotton, organic cotton, which is quite unique because I have never... Honestly, I think this is one of the most beautiful fabrics that we have ever created because I have never seen that structure and that madness and on a 100% cotton fiber before.
It doesn't look like cotton. It looks like
exactly.
plastic tech layer.
Yeah, exactly. I actually think the outcome of this fabric was really, really cool. What we normally do is that, when we have spent time on developing these fabrics, then we use them across the collection. So we don't only make that one jacket, then we make shorts and pants and overshirts, whatever it could be. So we stick with that fabric for many, many years and try to see, how many categories can we actually use this fabric on.
Of course, that makes sense. You want to make the most out of all the research. And if you create something that's better than a lot of alternatives, it's of course amazing that you are able to apply it to different styles as well. So we're coming to the end of the interview. I have a few little questions left. So when it comes to reducing your negative impact, right? You're trying to do a lot of things really well. What thing would you prioritize at any given time? If you have to choose between doing good, which things would be prioritized if you cannot do everything?
I mean, there's many aspects to this. Often we get the question, why do you produce in India, for instance? Why don't you produce closer to Denmark? And for me, it's just having seen and visited farmers in India, dye houses, spinning houses, CMT factories in India, having seen that and having seen also the impact that we as a mid-sized brand actually have just makes a lot of sense. So if we are able as a company to make a difference for so many people with our smaller quantity in a country like India, I think this is much more needed than doing production locally in Denmark. The human aspect of it is just very close to our heart. And when we can really feel that impact, I mean, we also have a small school in India where we have just built that school up from scratch and, donated computers. And, when you have a real impact on an environment like that, this is where it makes sense. And then, yes, we could also do that production in Denmark. But I mean, a lot of the people living in Denmark, they don't live under the same standards as they do in the south of India.
They don't need it as much.
They don't need it at all, to be honest. Not as much as those guys. So going 10 years back to the present time today, I mean, we have built a small community in a forest in India where there was nothing 10 years back. Now there's a factory there is a little community, there's a school, it's starting to roll, and to build that up really makes sense.
If you think about it for a second, if you're prioritizing people and, get the cotton into transition into regenerative, then in the end, you might have a little bit more transport miles, a little bit more emissions, but, you're also going to be capturing way more emissions in the soil. You're going to be reducing pesticides, reducing insecticides, helping local communities. So in the end, it probably is even net positive if you look at that particular choice.
It could be a funny calculation to do at a certain time, actually. But for us, to make the production where the fiber is just the way that we have always done it. And the cotton fiber for us is in India, and this is where we build from. But I would say that, at a certain point, we need to stop consuming. We are kind of, helping that fire going on and on. We are also still contributing to a bad footprint. So I don't know if it's a good advice, to be honest.
It's not a good advice, but we say the same. On our homepage, you would say, please don't buy unless you actually need it. It's commercially very stupid, but, that's not why we're in this game, right? We're trying to change the world a little bit.
I mean, as long as there is a need, then there also needs to be a better alternative.
I totally agree. Anders, thank you so much for this amazing interview. I've learned a lot. I had a lot of fun. And can't wait to meet in person one day.
Yeah, perfect.
All right. Bye-bye.
Take care.